Open mine eyes that I may see glimpses of truth revealed to me. Open mine eyes, illumine me. Spirit divine. Love of my life, I am crying. I am not dying. I am dancing, dancing along in the madness. There is no sadness, only a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. What do you do for a living? Are you forgiving, giving shelter? Follow your heart, love will find you, truth will unbind you. Sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Come to your life like a warrior. Nothing will bore you. You can be happy. Let in the light, it will heal you, and you can feel you. Sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time.
Welcome, those who are holding on by a thread, determined breakers of the chains of loneliness and isolation. You push through your fear because something told you that you deserve to belong. Welcome home. Welcome those who braid ropes again and again. You've been there for our siblings who were just hanging on. You gave them a hand into community and told them they could rest here. Welcome you who seek spiritual and religious community for your children and grandchildren. You entrust your young people here, and we as a community commit to nurture and respect them. Welcome children and youth. You give us the gift of your wisdom, your joy, your curiosity, and your trust that we will hold all of it safe. Welcome, welcome home. How do we make this tender place wider? How do we stretch into a bolder welcome, a radical generosity of the heart? Can we imagine ourselves the stewards and ushers not only into this space, but into our circle of belonging? Can we commit and recommit to being accountable to one another as an anti-racist, anti-oppressive community that centers marginalized voices, that listens to those voices, especially when what they are saying is hard to hear? Can we be willing to change? When we break our agreements with one another, can we offer amends? Can we be humble and generous? There is grace enough here. There is in this place the possibility of healing, of repair, of making things right within ourselves, between us, and with the wider world. There is in this place possibility. Welcome home. Hear these words for our chalice lighting by Amy Williams Clark. We gather in this time of uncertainty, full of unknowns, as angst closes in upon us. We light this chalice with a flame that draws us together. With this flame, we cut through the darkness of isolation and are warmed by the fires of our interconnection. For this moment, this radical moment, we find a certainty within the knowable bonds of love and community. Let us join together in our spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to help one another. Our opening thought comes from Joseph Fletcher, from his work, Situation Ethics. We ought to love people and use things. The essence of immorality is to love things and use people. First reading comes from The Ethics of Ambiguity by Simone de Beauvoir. There is no way for a person to escape from this world. It is in this world that, avoiding the pitfalls we have just pointed out, a person must realize one's self-morality. Freedom must project itself toward its own reality through a content whose value it establishes. An end is valid only by the freedom which established it and which willed itself through this end. But this will implies that freedom is not to be engulfed in any goal. Neither is it to dissipate itself vainly without aiming at a goal. To will oneself free is also to will others free. The will is not an abstract formula. It points out to each person concrete action to be achieved. But the others are separate, even opposed, and the person of goodwill sees concrete and difficult problems arising in relations with others. Our meditation this morning comes from Vanessa Southern. Even this is enough. So much undone, so much to do, so much to heal in us and the world. So much to acquire: a meal, a healthy body, a fit one, a lover, a job, a better job. Proof we have and are enough, just around the corner of now. And up against it, the reality of all that falls short and the limits of today. We honor the limits. If your body won't do what it used to, for right now, let it be enough. If your mind won't stop racing or can't think of the word, let it be enough. If you are here utterly alone and in despair, be all that here with us. If today you cannot sing because your throat hurts or you don't have the heart for music, be silent. The world won't stop spinning on her axis if you don't rise to all occasions today. Love won't cease to flow in your direction. Your heart won't stop beating. All hope won't be lost. You are part of the plan for this world's salvation. Of that I have no doubt. The world needs its oceans of people striving to be good, to carry us to the shores of hope and wash fear from the beachheads and cleanse all wounds so they can heal. But oceans are big, and I'm sure there are parts that don't feel up to the task of the whole some days. Rest if you must. Then, like the swimmer lying on her back who floats, or the hawk carried on cushions of air, rest in pews made to hold weary lives in space carved out for the doing of nothing much, but being. Perhaps then you will feel in your bones, in your weary heart, the aching, the healing sense that this is enough, even this, that we are enough. You are enough. Enough.
From you I receive, to you I give, to Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
Our second reading comes from Paul Lehman and his work titled Ethics in a Christian Context. In the koinonia, the community, a continuing experiment is going on in the concrete reality and possibility of our interrelatedness and openness to each other. The primary ethical reality is the human factor, the human indicative, in every situation involving the interrelationships and the decisions of persons. As many of you already know, my main area of teaching and research is in the discipline of social and ecological ethics. The simple definition of ethics is thinking about morality. In other words, thinking about the moral decisions that we make in our everyday lives and attempting to understand what lies behind those decisions and what might help us to make our moral decisions in more appropriate ways. The particular approach that I most often take to ethics is called the contextual approach. Contextual ethics rejects the notion that there are moral absolutes that can be applied in every context and every situation. Rather than adhering to moral absolutes, contextual ethicists ask themselves this question: what is the most fitting thing to do in this particular context or situation? They look at all of the ingredients of a moral situation, the choices that present themselves as possibilities, the values for humans and for non-human beings that are present in the situation, the obligations that we might have to others in the situation or the context, and whether there may be some helpful moral principles that can give us guidance in the situation. That is, looking at what the wisdom of the past might teach us in making moral decisions in the present. Contextual ethics is a realization that we are moral agents who have to take responsibility for understanding our situation as best we can and making the most fitting and most responsible actions in the context in which we live and act. We cannot simply point to a moral absolute that will apply for all of time. Life and morality are messier than that. Life and morality are more nuanced and more complex than that. As we now face the context of a global pandemic, a context which is indeed extremely messy, nuanced, and complex, what are the most fitting, the most responsible ways for us to act and be in community with each other? This is perhaps one of the most important questions that we need to be addressing at this time. And today I want to reflect on this question in three different ways. The first approach I will take will be in the form of a parable, the inspiration for which I am pretty sure many of you will recognize. The second exploration will be a contemporary rewriting of what are known as the Beatitudes in the Christian tradition. But the Beatitudes I will share are specifically inclusive and non-sectarian in nature and apply directly to the context of a global pandemic. The third exploration that I will take is related to literature, specifically the work of Albert Camus in his novel titled The Plague, with a special focus on one particular character whose deeply troubling reaction to the plague may be helpful in keeping us from having a similar tragic response in our real life experience of a plague today. First, the parable. A woman went down to the grocery store where she had to work as a cashier during the pandemic to support her family. She encountered persons who did not respect the risk that her job posed to her, who stripped her of her dignity, mocked her for wearing a mask, and left her each day in danger of possible illness and even death. Now it just so happened that an evangelical Christian was going down the same checkout lane. And when he saw the woman at the register, he crossed over too close to the woman, inside the distance of 6 feet while not wearing a mask. And he said to her, "It's too bad you have to wear that silly mask so I can't see your pretty smile." He paid for his groceries, spraying droplets on the credit card reader as he spoke, and went on his way. Likewise, an evangelical minister came by that same checkout lane, saw the woman cashier, and crossing inside the distance of 6 feet and also not wearing a mask, invited the woman to come to his church next Sunday. Because unlike so many other churches who continue to have online services, his church had decided to reopen a few weeks ago. He paid for his groceries, spraying droplets on the credit card reader as he spoke, and went on his way. A Muslim woman with a head covering and a mask, who was also shopping in the store, came to where the woman cashier was. But when she saw her and the way the people in front of her had treated the woman, she was moved with compassion. The Muslim woman stayed at least 6 feet away from the cashier, thanked her for her help, and wiped the credit card reader with disinfectant after using it. Then she noticed that the mask the woman cashier was using was rather tattered, and it did not fit her well. So she placed the groceries in her basket and told the cashier that she had something in her car for her. In the next few minutes, the Muslim woman returned into the store with a box of new masks and gave them to the cashier, thanking her again for her help and allowing her to come and purchase food for her family. What do you think? Which one of these three was a neighbor to the woman? And now the pandemic beatitudes. Blessed are the mask wearers, for they help keep persons of sacred worth from dying alone and scared, separated from family and friends. Blessed are those who care for the sick and comfort the dying, for they are the presence of beloved community. Blessed are those who mourn the dead rather than minimize their death, for they will retain their humanity. Blessed are the scientists searching for treatments and vaccines, for they are bearers of hope. Blessed are the food providers, for those who can and cannot pay, for they are sustainers of life. Blessed are those who keep their distance, for they allow our beloved ones to remain close. Blessed are those who refuse to profit unjustly from the pandemic, for they bear witness to justice and common decency. Blessed are employers who keep workers safe, for they value life over profit. Blessed are leaders who make compassionate decisions based upon knowledge and evidence, for they forge a wise path. Blessed are the truth tellers for they provide the best information possible to keep all of us safe. Blessed are those who do not use the pandemic to divide us, for they work for the common good of all. And finally, a reflection on Camus' The Plague and his portrayal of a priest named Father Panelou, who reacted to the plague in his town by seeing it as a form of God's punishment of the wicked. After a month of the plague spreading through the town, Father Panelou calls the people of the town into the cathedral, and they pack the cathedral in the middle of a plague. And he preaches to them about the plague and how it is the punishment of God for those who are not righteous. And for those who are righteous, there is nothing to fear. Not surprisingly, larger numbers of people are stricken by the plague, likely owing to the gathering in the cathedral that was called by the priest. And the situation becomes more and more desperate. A few months later, Father Panelou dies in agony shortly after witnessing the suffering and the excruciating death of an innocent child, even though he cried out for God to save the child. His simplistic, moralistic theology unable to sustain him any longer. Turning to today, as we look at many religious communities who are wanting to get things back to normal, who are wanting to pack their churches in the context of a global pandemic, let them who have ears to listen hear, and may we hope that they will do the fitting thing. Amen.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul, in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul, in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul, in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul, in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've
Our parting thought this morning comes from Joseph Fletcher from his Situation Ethics. There are times when persons have to push their principles aside and do the right thing. Hear these words for the extinguishing of the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Peace be with you, my friends.